It turns out that the desire to mess with one's brain is not just something that we humans have, but it occurs across species, and it is not limited to those substances that activate the brain's pleasure circuit. So, for example, a number of animals will consume hallucinogens. I would like to read briefly from this section. It's one of my favorites because it's about reindeer pee. Lord Byron, the British romantic and satiric poet of the early 19th century, wrote, I don't have a very good Lord Byron voice. Man being reasonable must get drunk. The best of life is but intoxication. And while Byron was describing the effects of alcohol, the larger truth applies to psychoactive drugs generally, because most are derived from plant extracts or from simple recipes applied to plants like alcohol or amphetamines, or to fungi like mescaline. They're widely available and widely used. In fact, intoxication with psychoactive drugs is not an exclusively human proclivity. Animals in the wild will also voluntarily and repeatedly consume psychoactive plants and fungi. Birds, elephants, and monkeys have all been reported to enthusiastically seek out fruits and berries that have fallen to the ground and undergone natural fermentation to produce alcohol. In Gabon, which lies in the western equatorial region of Africa, boars, elephants, porcupines, and gorillas have all been reported to consume the intoxicating hallucinogenic iboga plant. There is even some evidence that young elephants learn to eat iboga by observing the action of the elders in the social group. So they're learning to get high from their parents. In the highlands of Ethiopia, goats cut the middleman out of the Starbucks business model by munching wild coffee berries and catching a caffeine buzz. But I think we have to be careful about these observations. Do we really know that these animals like the psychoactive effects of a drug, or they're just willing to put up with it as a side effect of consuming a valuable food source? After all, fermented fruit is a tasty and nutritious meal. And while it's hard to dissociate these motivations in animals, many cases suggest that the psychoactive effect is the primary motivator for consumption. Often only a tiny amount of plant or fungus is consumed, so while its nutritional effect is minuscule, its psychoactive effect is large. And perhaps the most dramatic effect of non-nutritive animal intoxication is found among domesticated reindeer. The Chukchi people of Siberia, who are reindeer herders, consume the bright red hallucinogenic mushroom Amanita muscaria as a ritual sacrament, and their reindeer also indulge. On discovering the mushrooms growing wild under the birch trees, they gobble them up and then stagger around in a disoriented state, twitching their heads repeatedly as they wander off from the herd for hours at a time. The active ingredient of the Amanita mushroom is ibotenic acid, a portion of which is converted in the body into another compound called mucimol. And mucimol is the substance that actually produces the hallucinations. What's interesting about ibotenic acid is that only a fraction is metabolized in the body to form mucimol, while the rest, about 80% of that consumed, is passed in the urine. And I think some of you are seeing what's coming up. The reindeer have learned that licking ibotenic acid-laden urine will produce as much of a high as eating the mushroom itself. In fact, this drug urine will attract reindeer from far and wide, and they will even fight over access to a patch of particularly attractive yellow snow. All of this has not gone unnoticed by the Chukchi, who connect the urine of their Amanita-eating shamans for two reasons. The first is simple thriftiness. Amanita mushrooms are often scarce, so urine recycling can provide about 5 doses for the cost of one fresh one, albeit with a rather severe aesthetic penalty. The second is that their reindeer are just as enthusiastic about human Amanita-tainted urine as they are about their own, so they can be effectively rounded up with a bit of the stuff sprinkled into a corral. Clearly, Siberian reindeer are not fighting over drugged urine for its nutritive value. Or as Bob Dylan said all those years ago, everyone must get stoned.